we see a key trend in the Indian ecosystem wherein a lot of multinational firms are thinking and in fact moving ahead with their issuing of IPOs in the Indian context of their Indian subsidiaries. Now, this was not the case in before in the past century. Now, recently we are seeing this trend building, and this shows a lot of trust is there in the Indian economic system. Now, if we look into the blockbuster IPO release of LG Electronics, then the valuation which comes out from their $1.3 billion IPO issuing in India is nearly $12 billion, which is higher than that of their parent company in South Korea, having a market cap of $9.4 billion. So that is the kind of value being unlocked in India. And similarly, last year we have seen Hyundai Motor raising $3.3 billion in the Indian market. So these multinational firms are in fact leveraging the Indian equity market and raising money, issuing IPOs, and getting more deeper in their operations within the Indian context with a long term vision. And that is a very healthy sign. In fact, earlier in the previous century, the Indian government wanted these multinational firms to expand and engage with the primary market in the Indian context, but largely they remained private. Even in the 21st century, most of these multinationals operate in the private space and they don't go public in the Indian context. Yes, there are concerns. There's the process is cumbersome. What was earlier, in fact, of getting listed, and in fact, the trust in the rupee and the trust in the Indian market, all of those is increasing with time. The trust in the Indian economy, the stability, the macroeconomic environment, everything is changing. And for that reason, we see multinational firms are now going public in the Indian context, and which is a very healthy sign for our Indian economy, the Indian rupee, the long-term development vision of the country, the employment generation, the expansion, and the further exporting from the making India as a base country, raising money to increase the business. All of this can happen when this public issuing of IPOs starts happening of these multinational firms. Now, Coca-Cola is also thinking about raising $1 billion in their Indian arm, Hindustan Coca-Cola Beverages, and that is also something very positive sign. And we would expect more and more multinationals, be it in the FMCG or other industries, to set up their base more stronger and engage more deeply with the Indian equity system. Now, this is clearly being supported by the kind of investments which is flowing in these primary market or the secondary market through mutual funds and all. So the kind of investment what we have seen in 2025 from the domestic institutional investors is nearly $60 billion in 2025 year till date, and that's a huge number, which is definitely backed by the retail investors who are putting their money through SIPs. So the kind of money which is flowing, so the reliance on the foreign institutional investors is decreasing because Indian retailers, retail market is very strong, the domestic institutional investors very strong and putting in a lot of money for these companies. In fact, firms annually are raising $8 to $10 billion of money in the recent couple of years, each year. That is the kind of money being raised from the primary and secondary market. So we see the kind of movement of money, the velocity what we have in the Indian context. This is all supported by the deep engagement of the retail investors in India, and the kind of movement of money is happening in India is something which is very unique, if we can say so. And that is what is being leveraged by a lot of multinational firms, and they have started thinking about putting in money, raising money in the Indian context. Now, one more interesting thing what happens here is when these companies go in the public market, then the private equity funds can have a good option to exit, and then they can search for other private companies, private spaces to put in their money. So that further increases the economic activities and increases the quality, compliance, and all of those of the various firms what we have all across the country. And a lot of opportunities and a lot of better investment options comes into picture. So that trend is something very healthy. and that needs to be supported. Thank you.